So next speaker is Jeff Weber, also from Unidata. Jeff's program manager, been here since '98. Is that right?
Correct.
And master's from CU, and he's going to be talking about another resource at Unidata, Teaching Resources Network. So let's welcome Jeff.
Greetings, Earthlings. From the future. The caveat for some of these PowerPoint presentations was less is more and brevity is appreciated. So I'll start with this, and are there any questions? It's another failed joke. Let's do it again. Because that's live too. So the Teaching Resource Network is born from the user committee at Unidata expressing desire for them to be able to share content, data, bundles, any kind of digital content of any type. And so since we had a very effective platform for content management, the Ramada system, which many of you people have been accessing some of the information for this workshop, it was very easy to build a resource network on the Ramada platform. So some of the attributes that make it attractive are that it is data and operating system agnostic. It can run on Macs or Linux systems or Windows machines, and it really doesn't care what type of data you throw at it. Imagery, pictures, JPEGs, GIFs, binary, it doesn't matter. It can handle any type of content that is digital that you can throw at it. Now, a caveat to that is that some of the data we can do more things with, and that's the deep ties to Unidata software. So if it's a NetCDF file or an IDV bundle, there's a lot more exciting things that we can do with it as opposed to if it's an HDF file that we don't have that much expertise on. It is built on the Ramada framework. A big plus is that it is federated and distributed. So this is not a central repository. People can run their own Ramadas, create content that are teaching resources, and then through a master search here at the Ramada instance at UCAR, those are all connected. So you can have that type of discovery across a number of institutions. And the Ramada platform is browser-based. So the only software that is needed to access the content is a browser. So that's very attractive. The capabilities are going to be far greater than what I'm going to touch on. I'm going to touch on some of the larger capabilities that it has, but these are certainly not an exhaustive list. And some of this is for the IDV. Now, Ramada and the IDV were developed by some of the same developers, and so they play very well together. And so when you're looking at, for the meteorological community, which is the large part of this audience, is that it can take satellite or radar data or LiDAR or surface observations, a variety of model output, Grid 1, Grid 2, NetCDF, shape files, web map servers, web coverage servers, web feature services, those types of servers, and more, all in their native format. So there's no having to wrangle some of the data products that you might have so that you can use it in a teaching environment. Some additional capabilities, again, this is more geared to this audience, is that there's a really nice way to look at real-time weather and case studies that involve weather analysis. Of course, you could do this for solid earth or hydrology or whatever your domain is, but I'm keeping it in the meteorological space for this talk. Lab exercises with curriculum. So this is a really nice way for massive online open coursework to be able to share data with their curriculum on a fairly platform-independent piece of software. And so you can imagine thousands of people trying to take a course, and they'd like to get their hands on data or get that nice rich experience of a data-rich lab exercise, but sometimes that's been difficult to do over distance or through a variety of platforms or operating systems. Well, this can accommodate that. And then, as I had mentioned earlier, the search and discovery. This is really kind of the holy grail for this type of a project, is that it doesn't have to reside in one location. So, for example, at this point in time, I'd really like to thank Brian Mapes at the University of Miami, Kevin Tile at the State University of New York at Albany, for their early adoption of this and for participating and contributing content. Marty Baxter, also at Central Michigan, and Jim Steenberg at the University of Utah. He's contributed content but is not running a Ramada server as part of the network. Now, another capability that kind of drifts away from the IDV or from the Unidata-centric software stack is that if you have Excel spreadsheet data, that also can be visualized through the browser in Ramada. So we're not kind of pigeoning ourselves into just IDV visualization. There are a number of ways that you can visualize the Excel spreadsheets, and we'll demonstrate that in a moment. So one of the things that I'm here to do is to encourage you all to get involved. YouTube would only be so good if it only had 1 or 2 cat videos, but it's got millions, so we keep going back, right? Even Grumpy Cat. So the more content that we have and the more diverse and rich content that we can have and make it offered up through this platform, it's going to get people to come and visit it more and add value to it. And so you could add content to an existing teaching resource. That's kind of the paradigm that we're hoping for here is that, let's take an example such as a hurricane making landfall. Okay, there's a lot of different science that is involved in a hurricane making landfall. Of course, you have the atmospheric perspective. You have wind speeds, precipitation, but you also have like an oceanographer's perspective. If we look at Katrina or something like that, why did Katrina rapidly intensify in the center of the Gulf? Well, sea surface temperatures and warm pools was a large factor. Then to keep on that same storyline, once Katrina made landfall, you have all sorts of GIS applications that were looking at places that were inundated, schools or hospitals that were affected, emergency routes out, and so you kind of get this multidisciplined case study that can be built on by experts in their respective fields. So ideally you'd get an atmospheric scientist, maybe from the University of Miami, to give some wonderful input on what's happening with the hurricane as far as dynamics and track and strength and winds and precipitation. But then you might want to have an oceanographer's perspective on sea surface temperatures and oceanographic circulation to add their input into this case study. And then as it makes landfall, maybe your emergency managers could contribute shape files or other types of data sets that would be salient to the case. And so then you get this nice, rich, robust, multi-viewed case study. And so that way they don't remain static. They can have a life of their own. They can live. It's just, admittedly, if you look at the 1993 storm of the century, it's still a wonderful case study, but it'd be far richer if, tens or hundreds of people have been able to contribute to that in the past 20 years to make it even a more broad and richer case study. So you can either create your own content or you can add content to an existing teaching resource, and we'll go through that process here in a moment. Or if you don't feel like creating your own resource or running your own Ramada, you can get an account on our Ramada here at UCAR that we operate and maintain, and start playing the game that way by either adding content to existing teaching resources or adding content to us. So some content information, the URL for the Teaching Resource Network and myself. This is going to be online, so you can find that. But let's escape out of the PowerPoint death world and get back into real space. Email. Everybody go to email, right? Okay, so this is what the Ramada looks like, and you guys have been accessing this page. Maybe you've been drilling right down to the Unidata Workshops page. The teaching resource is a project at Unidata, so we'll blow up that project link, and we'll take it down. It is alphabetical, and so we're really at the bottom at teaching resources. And we'll just scroll this down a little bit so you can kind of take a view at some of the content. Now, at the onset, we said, well, we'll just put all the teaching resources into this one bin, so to speak, and people can come and hit this directory and look for teaching resources and find them there. That's kind of 1900s, or it's not so advanced, and so we thought, how can we better facilitate search and discovery? And so, if you wanted to, you could go, well, I want to take a look at the current West Coast weather. I can click on that. This was contributed by Jim Steenberg. Now, to kind of create a common look and feel, anytime you create a teaching resource, it's going to throw in a couple of folders, data and documents. Okay, so if you have Word or any type of document, you can put it in your documents folder. If you have the data, you put it in the data folder. You can still add different folders to it, but just to have some consistency, it's always going to have a data folder and a documents folder. We don't know if people are going to use the IDV for all their teaching resources, so we don't have an IDV bundles folder that can be added at their point in time. So we go to data here, and we see, oh, there's the West CONUS X IDV bundle. Now, I think it was Dr. Mapes who asked us to load the IDV. And so you all have the IDV up and running on your machine, or it's at least installed on your machine. If you wanted to play along, this is the real neat tie-in between the IDV and Ramada, is that you can navigate this same Ramada catalog that we're seeing here on the web through the IDV client. And so if you wanted to bring up the IDV client, You can do so like this, and go to our data choosers, and you can see I've saved you the task of you trying to navigate through. But here's the teaching resources, and here's the same type of view of the products that we have in the Ramada server through the client view. And so if I were so inclined, or if anybody in the audience playing along were so inclined, they could go to the current West Coast weather analysis, go to the data, see the bundle, select it, and then add that source, which I'm going to do just for fun. I'm going to tell it to remove all the displays and add the displays to the current window. And all of a sudden, Jim Steenberg's magic starts to happen on my machine. Now, Jim spent a lot of time making some really nice bundles for his current weather analysis. And these are the bundles that he uses for his current coursework, when he does his weather briefings and such. And so Jim's put a lot of time into this, and so I don't have to. And so he's been gracious enough to share this with the community. If you're all trying to hit this over the network, we're going to get a little saturation to slow us down a little bit. But what Jim has done is he's added the types of satellite views. He's got infrared, visible, and water vapor all loading up. He's got different types of surface parameters and certain types of upper air parameters that he likes to look at on his weather briefing. And so we can actually look at this. This is all current, and it's all using the latest semantic paradigm that we use in the IDV, so you can always look at the real-time current weather. And you start to see the data stuff starting to populate on the right-hand side. We're getting the water vapor, the IR, and if you were on a hard connect with a real network, this would be happening much quicker, but time marches on. And so we can actually take a look at today's weather. We can actually see the cold front backdooring us out of the northeast, out of Wyoming. And whoever went, did anybody go out to lunch today and it was like 88 around 11:30, and at 12:30 it was 81. We dropped 6 degrees over the noon hour because of this cold front backdooring us from Wyoming. And so we can actually see that if we wanted to march through this as it's still loading up its data. We can try to march through this and see some of that taking place right there. That's Colorado. And so this is a real nice way to share your efforts. And so Unidata is a consortium of universities in our user community of about 100 different universities. And so you can imagine if each university were to create one teaching resource per semester, eventually we start getting some real content. Now everybody's going to geek out on the weather, right? I know I am. But we can kind of see how the flows come out of the northeast here in northeast Colorado. The temperature is 60 in western Nebraska. Really quite cold in Wyoming as well. There's a frontal boundary right along here, so it stayed, still warm in the southern part of Colorado. It was still in the 80s and 90s, whereas in North Colorado it was in the 70s. So kind of a fun little thing to do. But this is the tight interaction that we can get with the IDV and the Ramada. Now, there's a lot of other things that we can do in this space. For example, I'm going to go to this one. This is another example. This is a URL, and this is not using the IDV. This is a field project, but Rico Rain and the cumulus over the ocean, I think is what Rico stands for. And Jeff McWhorter, who is the developer of the Ramada and now head of Geode Systems, created this wiki page to show this data set from EOL, the Earth Observing Lab here at NCAR. And he's been able to get a couple of parameters here. You can actually play through this. You can see as time marches on, you can actually watch the aircraft, which is this red button over by St. Kitts and Nevis and Antigua and Barbuda is actually where they are. And as time marches on, you can see the values here, and you can also mouse over and see the values. Or you can come down this page a little bit and see the values marching on here as time marches on. You can see the elevation going up as the pressure goes down, the plane is rising. And you can watch the plane going over on its track. So you can see how valuable this might also be for field campaigns, as well as teaching your students when you get back from your field campaign how to look at this type of data. And also showing it to your funding agencies or showing it with your collaborators or your co-PIs. Rather than saying, well, here's the data file, do your own magic with it, which some obviously will prefer, but this is a real nice way to have a nice visualization of your data on a content management system that can be publicly shared. Again, watching through the track. This is a real nice animation. We'll bounce back a little bit. Now, I had mentioned to you that we also have this search capability. And this is what I think is what kind of sets us apart from a lot of other type of content management systems, is that you can have, yes, Brian. There we go. Sorry, thank you, Ryan. And so the second entry is called the Teaching Resources Network Search. Now, when I hit this, it's automatically looking in the local Ramada, and it's looking for things that are tagged with the metadata tag of teaching resources. And we have a fair amount of things here. Now, there's not a lot of stuff here, but there's quite a few things. Now, if I were to go to case studies and select that, I'm going to see a wealth of other material that's lurking under the case studies. For example, when I got here in the 1900s, I was working with Comet to create these Comet case studies. They're still quite valuable. They're still very useful. And now they have a new life because Comet had kind of abandoned them. But now they live on as case studies in the Teaching Resource Network. And they're really quite nice. They're well documented. They have summaries. They work you through some exercises. For example, let's go to Missouri severe weather. Let's see what they're doing. Oh, let's go New Jersey flood. Oh, that one's pretty good. And you get a nice map. You get a nice dialogue. And then you have the wealth of the data sets. You have all of the GEMPACK files, the ACARs, the raw grids, satellite images with radar, and the weather, which was an old directory for all the surface observations that were from this, and some sample imagery and references and exercises. And so it's really quite nice to have this in our content. Something else that I'd like to highlight here, since Dave Dempsey is here, San Francisco State University creates some really nice upper air maps. Ramada has the capability to go out and harvest URLs on a periodic basis. And I really like the way San Francisco State University does their upper level air maps, and so I've been harvesting them since 2011. And so you can create your own case studies with like this little core of data. You have National Radar Mosaic, upper air, surface analysis, national weather hazards. But let's just go to 2015. Let's take a look at June. Let's take a look at the current week, and let's take a look at the current image. And this is what it looks like, and I can blow that up a little bit. And thanks to Dave Dempsey and his efforts, I have a 4-year archive every 6 hours of upper air of the 500 millibar charts with satellite imagery on it. And so you could say, oh, well, I've got something in 2013, but I didn't save off my satellite data, or I didn't save off the surface analysis for that point in time. We've kind of harvested some of the basic things that you would need to get a rudimentary case study going that might fill in some of your gaps. And so that's really quite nice, a nice thing to have. You can animate through those as well with a player. If you want to take a look at National Radar Mosaic, same type of concept, but scavenging this on a very periodic basis. And so the latest one is here, and there it is. And so that's today's radar. And so we've been scavenging these or harvesting these things through the Ramada, putting them into the Teaching Resource Network so you can create your own case studies in case you're missing some of these data points. Close out of this. And go back. And of course, there's a wealth of things going on here. Hurricanes, Ike, Irene, Charlie, Sandy. There's all sorts of content here. There's bundles, there's data, and all sorts of satellite imagery, 500 millibar analysis that we got from Dave Dempsey again, ATCF model forecast, hazards map, Gulf surface analysis. Some really nice stuff. So if you were interested in teaching about Hurricane Ike, this would be a good place to stop and shop and get some of that teaching resource goodness. Now, okay, that's all fine and dandy, but where's the real power of the search, right? Where's the federation? So I have a couple of options I can do. I can say, well, I don't want to look at this Ramada. I want to look at the one at the University of Miami. Well, there's the MAPES IDV collection. Just shows right up. I can blow that up and take a broader look at that and get all of this wondrousness. And here it is. And thank you, Brian, for sharing these with us. Now, I can also go back and say, well, teaching resources are great, but I really want to do something with the IDV. I want to know where he's got bundles. So instead of looking for teaching resources, I can look for IDV bundles. Now, currently, I'm looking at my local Ramada, and I can find bundles that hopefully have a descriptive name to them so I can kind of tell what they are, like this test one. Who knows what that is. But you could download that and load it into the IDV and find out. Or you can say, well, let's search the University of Miami for their bundles. And here they are. And I can say, well, I want to see all just the trim stuff that he's got. And now I get all of the bundles that have trim in them. And so now we're starting to get effective. We can actually start doing some really neat stuff. I can say, well, I want to search all the repositories for things that might have QG involved in them. If I get something should come back. Quit using the network, everybody. Get off your machines. Okay. So there's QG theory. And now we have this wonderful wealth of QG bundles that are already pre-populated for us to use. Now, you can imagine if we had hundreds of QG bundles, it could become a problem, right? And so some of our future work that we're looking at doing is some way to rank, or kind of like Amazon would say, people who view this QG bundle also like this QG bundle, or something in that same vein. And so we could have some way to rank them or to score them and say, well, this is a really good bundle. I'm going to give it a 10 out of 1 through 10. And so you'd have some sort of ranking mechanism that would give you, and then we'd bubble those up to the top on the search, right? So you get all the 10s up front, followed by the 9s and 8s, and so on. And so that's future work that needs to be done. But I think with the current corpus of content that we have, it works just fine this way. But it's really quite neat. And so, you can even say, well, what if you have anything on heat? Well, got something. Or I can go back to Noah Ezreal, who isn't here, but they have some really nice stuff. And they have like the heat wave there for Colorado Heat as a teaching resource. Now, this is not an IDV bundle. This is not using a lot of Unidata technologies, but it's a wonderful resource about the Colorado heat wave. And they have this is also on a Ramada server, and it's a wiki page that's been marked up to look like this. But you have all sorts of wonderful things. You have interactive charts for temperatures over the state in various places for that time. So you can imagine how, as time goes on, if you wanted to either teach a course or find out more about a certain topic, that the Teaching Resource Network has a lot of power behind it. And as this has been a very new project. It started last fall, late last fall, like October, November of 2014. And so we haven't done it even for a full year yet. And so as time goes on and the content continues to improve and become more robust, I'm hopeful that the Teaching Resource Network will continue to be a great resource for the Unidata community to come and find teaching resources or relevant bundles for either their study, their science, or for their teaching. It's basically geared for teaching, but you can use them for a variety of things. And it all depends on the community. I'm not making this content. I mean, I made some of the content, but I'm not going to make the content. You need to make the content. We have the platform to facilitate sharing it and getting it out to the community. So let's go back one more time, and I just want to show you one more fun capability. We'll go back to this Ramada Teaching Resources, and we'll scroll down here a little bit. Actually, let me go out of the search space and come down here. Everybody's probably wondering, well, all this Greenland stuff. What's all this Greenland stuff? Well, I spent the field season of 97 and 98 on the Greenland ice sheet, and this is actual data that I collected on the saddle between South Dome and the summit. This is an Excel spreadsheet, and you can plot it online. So let's say, well, let's see what the relationship is to shortwave radiation. So I'm going to get my x-axis. I want to make that time, and then I'm going to find something fun on the y-axis, like shortwave up. Oh, change that. It's supposed to be my y-axis. Shortwave up. And then I'll go back and change my x-axis to time. And I'm going to do a line chart. And wow, look at that, a diurnal cycle to shortwave radiation. Imagine that, right? It does work. It shows off really nice. And then you can even use it for, when you're out in your field, you say, well, yeah, that's fantastic, but, I've got a couple of air temperatures at different levels. I want to see how they're correlating between themselves. And so I could say, well, my y-axis is going to be my CS501 air temperature, and my x-axis is going to be not time, but we're going to go back up here and change it to the other one, and we'll do a line chart. And since these are measuring the same thing, hopefully we'll have a nice, a little bit of drift here in this area, but not so bad. Right around minus 30, which it was the most of the part of the time. They seem to be fairly good, but there seems to be a little bit of drift. That could be just a difference in the profile, because we have them 3 meters apart for our fluxes. And so the plotting of the Excel spreadsheets, I think, is quite nice. It's good for, as Sean would say, a quick look to see if the data makes sense, or to see if there's an event there that's worth looking at. It's really a nice way to get a quick look of an Excel spreadsheet without even having to bring it into an Excel client. Same type of thing. This is Colorado snowstorm. This is really quite neat. You came back here, and they even have like you can put a Wikipedia entry in there. It supports URLs. This is great. I just want to show you this since it's kind of warm today. Back in 2006, this is really neat. Let's see here. Okay, so Boulder had 32 inches on the 21st of December, followed up with 24 inches on the 28th. So for those of you who are bad at math, that's 56 inches in a week of snow. So that's, I remember that one. That was really nice. It was a lot of fun. Everybody was like skiing around town. That was really a really good one. But so you can bring in links to help embellish whatever case study you're working on. If there's an event in Wikipedia, such as the Colorado Holiday Blizzard, then you can also throw that in there. Something that I would also like to point out is that I took the liberty of taking a couple of our presenters this time around. And so let's say if I want to say, well, is there anything about Python here? Well, look at that. Johnny Lynn and Kevin Tile just popped right up. And these are the workshop entries. Now, I went to, when I look at Johnny Lynn's, I added one additional thing to his talk, which is the link to his book, which is freely available. And so you have a slide, his Python examples, his image, and so on. But here's the link that I was talking about. Kind of went to Wikipedia. Here we're going to his book. There's the link. You click on the link, and lo and behold, there's a hands-on introduction to using Python, atmospheric and oceanic sciences, and the free downloads here for the chapters, so that you all have this through the Ramada, all self-contained within the workshop, or you can just search through the teaching resources. Now, as we get more and more Python, either IPython notebooks or Python types of activities, they can be more well-defined with metadata. And so when you go to the teaching resources, you can say, I want Python and I want SKUT. So you type in Python and SKUT into your search, and I guess in theory you'd get Ryan May's work for MetPy, and that way it would scale nicely. And so this is a great way for not only the workshop to manage this content, but as we go on into the future with more Python scripts, to be able to find a Python script that would do what you wanted it to do through this interface. Again, it's going to be naming and metadata that's going to help you navigate that search space. I see Michael walking towards me, so I will ask at this point in time if there are any questions. Yes, please.
I've used wikis a lot past 10 years. And so you have this very similar to a wiki, that you have a lot of prioritization of data. Is there any way to import wiki stuff into this directory?
Yes, the wiki format is supported through the Ramada framework. And so what, like that Colorado Heat case study, that was a wiki marked up page in Ramada. And so it does support a wiki environment. So if you had an existing wiki, I've not taken an existing wiki and thrown it into Ramada. Hey, Jeff, can it do that?
Sure,
yeah, sure.
So it uses the Wikipedia wiki syntax, so you could copy and paste like a Wikipedia page, well, it's like they're all Wikipedia stuff, into Ramada, it would look similar to the Wikipedia page.
And that's Jeff McWhorter. He's the developer of the Ramada package and past Unidata employee. Yeah, so you can import wiki text. It might look slightly different through the Ramada framework than it would through another type of client, but it's certainly movable. So please add some content. Enjoy the site now. Browse through it. Find stuff that you can play around with. Load it up in the IDB. You can browse the teaching resources also through the IDB data chooser. Have some fun with it. Any feedback is greatly appreciated, and content added to it is even more appreciated. So thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of the workshop.